Aloha, welcome to the 40th Annual Hawaii International Film Festival presented by Holly Kalani and our discussion with the filmmakers of the ACM University of Hawaii at Manoa Showcase, ACM UHM, or ACM Central Academy for Creative Media. This is our annual showcase of the ACM films, and this is sponsored by the ACM school. So thank you very much, ACM, for sponsoring this section. It's great I think this is now going into over 10 years at least, or maybe even 11 years of presenting ACM films annually at the Hawaii International Film Festival. My name is Anderson Lay. I'm the artistic director for the festival, and I'm zooming in from Los Angeles, California at the time of this pre-recording. And as LA is the, just for some land acknowledgement, this is the land of the Tongva people. So welcome, ACM filmmakers. Before we start, I just want to go over some quick housekeeping bits, some programming updates. For up-to-date information on additions to our program and the full schedule of films, events, HIFF Talk story sessions, and Q&As, visit our website at www.hiff.org, hiff.org. For audience award voting, to participate in our Hawaii News Now audience award voting, please head to hawaiinewsnow.com/HIFF to cast your vote for your favorite narrative, documentary, and short film. Including these ACM films are also eligible for the audience award. Mahalo to Hawaii News Now for all their support. So welcome, filmmakers. How are you? Good?
Doing great, man.
Great. So I'm going to just introduce everyone who's participating in this year's ACM showcase. Joshua Ko, he's got actually two films in the showcase, Brown Bodies in a Far Sea and Ikaika. Welcome, Joshua. Molly Tapkin for Su Lechu Chita. I believe she's not on yet, but she will be hopefully signing on very soon. From Gavin Arukan, we have two animated shorts, the Pakele Kids and Midnight Showing. Gavin, welcome. Kalilinoe Detweiler for Puaka Uahi. And then for Pua Warriors, directed by Sophia Whalen. Welcome. Justin Kimata with his film Walls. And then Brianna Smith for her short documentary, Welcome to the Lanes. Welcome. Filmmakers, like as well as every year we show this showcase, and of course this is kind of a unique situation. Usually it's at our theater at the Regal Dole Cannery Theaters, and we all we have the screening on the big screen, and we have you all come up front and to greet the audience and have a Q&A. But obviously we can't do that, but this year, there is an opportunity for these films to. I mean, in a way, this is your demographic anyway. Like a lot of viewers of your age, of your generation, watch films differently, not necessarily as frequently on the big screen in the theater, but online through streaming services and what have you. So this potentially is a great opportunity for a lot of your films to be presented and to be seen by not only people in Hawaii but also nationwide. So this is I think this is a very exciting development especially for young filmmakers like you. So I mean, I just want to talk about kind of like this is we have a really strong representation of animated films here in this year's showcase, and I thought I think the animation or program is actually very, very strong in the last few years. I've been seeing some very impressive work coming out of the animation classes at ACM. Maybe I don't know who wants to talk first. Maybe Gavin, you're kind of alumnus of the ACM showcase. We've shown, I think, a couple of your animated films in previous editions. Can you talk about kind of like your two films, the Pakele Kids and Midnight Showing?
Yeah. So I made Midnight Showing last fall, and then Pakele Kids was made earlier this year. Midnight Showing was kind of like my big one. It was for a class where we made a short film in a big group. So we had like 8 people on the crew initially, but like the film was like really big with like all the stop motion and other like elements coming in that eventually like we like had to expand the crew, and I think like eventually ended up with like around 20 people like working on the film in some capacity, which is like really cool, but also kind of like stressful to manage. So then when I went into Pacala Kids, I was like, I want to keep it simple. I think it's it's a much smaller crew and more personal story, which I think is better to tell with like just a small crew. And it is going back to like it's kind of re-exploring themes from my first film that screened at HIFF, Down the Red Dirt Road. So it's like the same setting, different characters, but like really similar themes about leaving home and moving on, things like that.
Right. Definitely has that sense of nostalgia, Hanabata days, like very much like small kid time. Regarding the, like midnight showing, it's like very much an ode to movies and the love of cinema, right? So I love all the Easter eggs you put in there, when it comes to, kind of like the kind of ghost or haunted house aspects of working alone in the cinema, late at night. How about for the other anime films, Puaka Uahi? I really like that film a lot. Can you just talk about a little bit more about that film?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess my film was a combination between my art capstone class and my English thesis. And I was really trying to study and implement how to ethically tell an indigenous story. Like, even though I'm native Hawaiian, it doesn't mean like I automatically have this right to tell a Hawaiian story. So it was me challenging myself to practice kuleana in each stage of production and respecting my community. And I guess one of the themes I wanted to focus on personally was knowing the stories of home and knowing how mo'olelo are connected to each other. So that's why I bring in all these different characters from different mo'olelo.
Aside from the animation and the story was very beautiful, and but I really comment on the music was really good. Talk about the music. I mean, usually, when you see a lot of these student films, you get basically, kind of like music from music libraries, right? Like clearance rights, cleared public rights music. But I think this was like an original composition, right?
Yeah, it was composed by William Watson. I think he's a PhD candidate in the music department. I had him as a professor when I first entered UH Manoa in music education. So he was one of my professors, and I just wanted to bring it full circle and ask him to compose for me. And he was really great to work with. He really understood that I wanted to like open up the space of the movie and like give sort of musical quality to these grand landscapes.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very grand. I mean, it would be great to have more interaction between the music department and ECM. I think why not work with like aside from just your professor, but also other music students. So that's a great opportunity, and that really kind of like brought a sense of like scope, and it was much more grander in that sense. So
yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was really cool. For Pool Warriors, Sophia, can you talk about the idea behind that? I mean, it was very much like it could have been. I mean, maybe it is like kind of like inspired by like Powerpuff Girls or like, and it can also be like almost like a pilot for a potential series.
Yeah, so the idea was to make like a TV style, almost like a pilot, like you said, but still a short film, taking a lot of influence from anime and of course like other Western TV shows. And then specifically the magical girl genre, if you're familiar with that, friendship, girls, transformations and fighting. It's very important themes. Of course, since we set it in Hawaii, specifically Hawaii Island, a lot of the plants and all the plants, were actual like things you could find on the island. And the flowers themselves are also based on like very endangered flowers here.
So did you do research to make sure that you were using native? to the Big Island?
Yes.
Or native to the Big Island, not indigenous, but native to the Big Island. Okay. Very cool. Okay. Let's go for the. I think that's all the animated films that we're showing in the showcase.
Molly is here.
Oh, hi. Hi, Molly.
You're muted, Molly.
You're muted.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the best place to put my webcam, but it doesn't really have a great spot.
Great. Okay, actually, you're next because we're talking about animated films. So yeah, so can you talk about you're from Sulechuchita?
Sulechucita, yeah. Basically, like,
yeah.
Am I just kind of like describing what it's about, like what it is, or?
Yeah, and what's the inspiration? No, actually, because people have already seen these films already. When this is gonna be, this is gonna be playing during the festival, right? So this is like the intent is like they've seen these films, and now this is the Q&A after the films, right? So yeah.
Cool. So the inspiration for the film comes from the like Mexican American folklore about La Lechuza, which in super simple explanation were kind of known to be like witches who could transform into owls by night, and they would kidnap people or eat people or kidnap children. And there's all kinds of like different, like, oh, don't go out at night, don't go out. And so I kind of got the idea. I was like, but what if people just think they're evil and they're not evil? And so I was like, cute family dynamic with scary folklore, and I kind of just rolled with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a really big sucker for really cute, supportive, like parent-children dynamics.
Right.
So I just wanted something like that.
So did you kidify it in a way? Because is it more like like these stories are told? Is it more told as a scary tales, a scary folklore?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't say I kidified it. I mean, maybe. I mean, I didn't make it with the intent of like, oh, this is for kids.
Yeah.
I made a film that like I, as a 20-year-old, 20-something-year-old would want to watch.
Got it.
I just enjoy that kind of aesthetic.
Cool. Cool. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for being patient with me.
Yeah, no worries. So let's talk about Walls from Justin. Justin, this is very much a coming of age story, but also an allegory, or maybe not allegory, but abuse, right? Domestic abuse. Can you talk about the inspiration behind the film?
Yeah, sure. I guess like the main inspiration came from like things that I've seen in my own life, and like actually I used to live in like a dorm with other like Baptist college students, and like the managers of that dorm were really big and really good about like emotional vulnerability and like talking about that, and like they had talked a lot about how like there's kind of barriers for everybody, but like the film kind of tackles like how there's specifically barriers like for men. Like it's kind of like about how there's not only like romantic love, but there's also kind of like a platonic love between friends, and how like there's more barriers that get in the way of that for boys because of like masculinity, like especially like in America. So yeah, that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah, the performances are really good too. Can you maybe briefly talk about how you kind of coax these performances from your two young leads?
Yeah, we're really lucky to have two really strong leads. CJ was great, and both CJ and Xander already brought in a lot of like a high level of skill set. Took a lot of kind of just like communicating with them about like getting them a better understanding of the characters and the story, and then also just letting them go sometimes and just letting them improv and do their thing, and just trying to go for like the most authentic performance possible. So yeah, like a lot of their work really made the film work, basically.
Yeah, cool. Joshua, you got two films this year, Ikaika and Brown Bodies in the Farsi. Let's talk about the inspiration for Ikaika.
The inspiration for Ikaika came from wanting to show sort of the Hawaii that my friend and I grew up in. I was lucky enough to make the film with my good friend and production designer Kevin Dang, and we picked locations that were personal to both of us. And sort of the narrative for the story is very loose, and it was intended to be sort of this collection of little connected memories. And I was lucky to have a very talented crew. Chloe Ma shot it beautifully, and Ethan Gokri edited it. And yeah, I think it was just trying to show just the Hawaii that me and my friends grew up in here in East Honolulu.
Mm-hmm. What about, and then, I mean, in your other film, Brown Bodies in a Far Sea, I really like this film. It's kind of like, this is like what you call a film festival film. It's a very, it's a very muted, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff is happening when of this family who's preparing for, this impending, I guess, hurricane, right? So, but can you talk about, first of all, kind of your inspiration behind that? Because I see a lot of, kind of like inspirations from slow cinema. I don't know if you are aware of slow cinema as a genre. The filmmakers of slow cinema from, Apichatpong, Thasakul, and Tarkovsky, and what have you. But also kind of want to talk about kind of the aspect ratio that you chose.
So slow cinema was something I took huge inspirations from, especially one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm glad you mentioned him, is Tarkovsky's Stalker.
Oh yeah.
And sort of I wanted to bring the sort of slow cinema, this art house aesthetic, to a Hawaii aesthetic. And so we shot this thing in my house and the river adjacent to it. And one of the things that we wanted to do was make this, while at once something very unique to me, very much of like where I grew up, but something that's very universal. That's why we see the girl has no name. We don't know her name. We don't really know what she's like. We don't know the family sort of relations. And we're just sort of stuck in this, where I wanted that for the audience to have her as like an avatar. And sort of, I love how one of the things in slow cinema that they do, and what's his name? Paul Schrader talked about it in a TIFF conversation, in which you use sort of these slow moments and what he calls as what the audience can perceive as boredom, to have the audience leaning in, so the audience is actively participating, but at a certain moment you have to give them a release. And sort of where I came into that release was having that father figure, that ghost of her father come in, and having that titular scene of the brown bodies in a far sea, which for me encapsulated this sort of confusion and sort of lostlessness that I felt at the time, because I wrote it in the summer of 2019 at sort of the height of the Mauna Kea protests. And at the time I was displaced. I was studying abroad in Spain, and I was going on social media, seeing like a lot of my friends and peers visiting the Mauna, like protesting and being active, and sort of I was left to reflect on my sort of part in all this, growing up in Hawaii and thinking of and being a part of this community, this artistic community, and me not being there. And so for me, it was a very emotional piece. And that's why I sort of wanted to end the film on this sort of message of hope, like not inherent hope, because we have those chimes. We have one at the beginning, the one at when the father's there, and one where we see the light in the incoming storm. And that was to imply a sort of magical hopefulness quality to it.
Man, I see so much of myself in you, but in the early 1990s. That's really cool. So Brianna, this is the I guess the only documentary we have in the showcase, and also I guess the most current when it comes to kind of the situation we're in right now with the pandemic and businesses, especially local businesses that have been around for decades at a risk of closing and programming's ending. You know, the way of life in Hawaii is truly kind of like, you know, it's all topsy-turvy now because of you know, the lockdown and pandemic. Can you talk about kind of the, you know, what inspired you to kind of focus on this particular story?
Yeah, so it kind of happened organically. One night I was just surfing online, and I was reading random articles, and I came across one about the Save Pali Lanes Committee, which was sort of made as a grassroots campaign in order to try to save the alley, because it was in a very precarious situation at the time. And so I became really interested in that story because I had seen the changes in Kailua firsthand. I would go to my tutu's house when I was younger in Kailua. So I was able to, I witnessed the influx of tourists firsthand, and I'm sure that even older generations have seen those changes even more so. So I guess the story really resonated with me. So I emailed the committee and asked if they were interested in participating in a documentary, and it kind of started from there.
Was it? I mean, the documentary. You know, you really don't have like a timeline or per se. You just want to capture moments. You know, interview people. How was the process? Was it fairly easy to document, or was there somewhat challenging? And in trying to, you know, come up with you know, basically a through line for your documentary?
I think the biggest challenge that was against me was the time, because I started in January and I had to complete this in like a couple months. And for me, I don't want to just show up and be this like weird lady that has a camera and wants to film everyone. So I made sure that I spent time with the group, because they are special needs young adults. And also with Rosemary, I didn't just want to like intrude on them. So I spent like about 2 to 3 months just with them, no camera. And then immediately when I started filming in March, that was when the pandemic happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have no footage. And I really wanted to do like a very observational Wiseman-esque kind of film. And I was like, I can't do that because I just don't have enough footage. But like you said, things kind of happen organically with documentary. And I was able to kind of piece it together so that I could create a coherent film in the edit.
Good name drop with Frederick Wiseman. Very cool. So, I mean, this is kind of like a, you know, basically, you know, anyone can answer, you know, this question. I mean, you're all filmmakers, but still going to school. I mean, I don't know if some of you may have graduated already. Where do you see, I mean, obviously, do you want to see yourselves as career filmmakers, or maybe just learning the kind of like skill set, having the skill set of filmmaking and maybe working in another industry? I mean, in this world now where, you know, the visual medium is kind of like everyday life, you don't necessarily have to be a filmmaker to work in the film industry, but maybe you can work in, you know, branded content, or maybe even, you know, an animation studio, or maybe more for noble causes. You know, I mean, anyone can jump in.
Yes, I'll answer. So, you were saying like, or where?
Yeah, what do you see yourself?
Go?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're an animator. You know, I mean, I assume you want to work in an animation studio or direct your own animated films. I mean, where do you see yourself? You want to work in animation, like in TV, or do you want to work in like feature films? You want to work in? Yeah. You want to move to LA or New York or Tokyo, or stay in Hawaii and try to develop the industry there?
So, yeah, I think at like the end of this semester, I think Pacala Kids is like my best like character animation work, and was our major character animation. And I kind of like sat back and I was like, this is really, really hard to do. So, I think I actually don't want to like be an animator, but I think I want to move into like I would have to go to LA, but like the TV animation, I want to get into like, I think my big thing I discovered is like story above everything else. So I kind of want to go into the storyboarding like work, and especially TV, where I feel like it's a lot more fast paced rather than film where you're working on the same thing for like 2 years and you're redoing the same drawing like 50 times to get it perfect. Yeah, and especially like I did some work on Pool Warriors, and that was really like, wow, this is like, I like this. This is TV. Like it felt like a TV show, and I kind of enjoyed that feeling more than like a film. Like,
Yeah. I mean, this is actually, you actually make a great comment, and maybe this is for the any of the animators can jump in. Like the animated films you made, you directed or produced, are very kind of like personal to your own lineage, to your own kind of like heritage. In the sense of like in this world of like authenticity, creating stories from authenticity, not being whitewashed. Having its authentic voices and stuff like that. So, what do you see yourselves after graduating and producing the type of films? I mean, like you can say, I want to produce films like or shows like this. Like I don't know, Powerpuff Girls. I don't know. But from a native Hawaiian slant or something like that. But I mean, anyone can jump in. What is your kind of ideal career goal?
I'll go. Basically, that what you just talked about is kind of like one of the like big driving forces behind Sulechisita, like behind my whole film, was that basically putting faces in films that have never been put in films before, especially in certain film, like maybe you've seen them in film forms, but maybe they were never a main character, maybe they were never like a hero, maybe something like that. And so like seeing like my main character Lydia, she's a fat brown woman who gets to be like silly, fun, just fun having character who just she gets to jump around and she gets to run and she like, and I want to help put those faces in film and stuff like that, like, and that's I think is one of the biggest things that is important to me, whether I'm animating or helping writing or storyboarding or whatever.
How about Sophia or Colin Lenoy?
So I guess for me, concerning like career goals, right now I'm studying English in the master's program at UH, specifically in cultural studies. And I want to see how we can open up maybe ancestral or traditional knowledge and bring those stories to the present. So I really want to adapt folklore into these new settings, either with magic or with new technologies, much like Ghibli has, and I guess introduce this culture and adapt it to show that Hawaiian culture is thriving and it's not preserved. So yeah, I guess some projects that I'm looking forward to doing is, I guess, exploring Hawaiian history and folklore in either comic styles and animation, primarily in like children's media. Yeah.
Sophia?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to get into the TV industry. Obviously, like making a TV like focused short film. Also, I'd want to be able to add more specifically like Asian characters into these kinds of shows, and even like the small town type of characters, more girls, just like that. Like, if I could make Pool Warriors in a series, I would do it because it has all the elements that I'm looking to continue to make, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how about, and maybe this is like for the the live action directors. I mean, maybe starting with Brianna. Do you want to continue? Do you see yourself as a documentary filmmaker, or do you you just want to just tell stories, and it can be documentaries or narrative?
I really do love documentaries, so if I could continue making documentary films, I would love that. I think making this film, it really taught me a lot about just how interesting and how your perspective can really change on issues when you get to look at them up close. And I was able to witness firsthand, what a particular place meant to a group of people. And that was really rewarding because I never would have ever gotten to do that if I didn't make this film. So I find that documentary filmmaking is really rewarding because I'm always challenging my perspective and my worldview.
Justin?
Yeah, I don't really have like a specific place in like an industry that I was going for, but I do really want to be a part of productions that tell lesser told stories, basically, whether that be like in narrative or documentary, just like topics that people go through in life, but there aren't like a lot of films about it, or there aren't like any films about it. And yeah, that's what my goal is.
Joshua?
Man, I'm gonna be an indie filmmaker forever, 100%, man. I'm actually working on my first short film out of school, and I want to keep making films until I die, pretty much, even if no one watches them, But I mean, for Sophia, I definitely want to see more magical girls in Hawaii. I love pool warriors. Cool.
Well, congratulations to all the ACM filmmakers. You guys, you filmmakers, did an amazing job this year. I think this was a really, really stellar lineup of films this year. And I got to give kudos to the animation films, especially, you really stepped up your game this year. And also the live action films were, very top notch. I mean, we're very, usually when it comes to student filmmakers, they or college filmmakers, they shoot for what they know, and usually it's kind of like coming of age or what have you. But these are kind of like, I saw a breadth of different perspectives and styles and themes that were explored. So it really shows kind of like really kind of the maturation of different voices in your journey as a student filmmaker at ACM. So thank you very much for all of you for participating and also being a part of the festival, and also for all the audiences out there who saw the ACM UHM showcase this year. We have a lot of different films. We have over 200 films playing at the festival this year, so with the majority of them online. Again, for all the latest updates, or to see how you can watch these films, go to our website at HIFF40. You can watch it on your computer, on your tablet, on your smartphone, or on your TV if you have an Apple TV, Roku, or Amazon Fire Stick. So, and also we'll have in-person live screenings at Consolidated Theaters and some other live in-person screenings as well, which will be announced very soon. So for all the latest updates, go to HIFF.org, HIFF.org. Thank you again for watching this discussion today, and a special mahalo to all of our HIFF sponsors, board directors, audience members, HIFF Ohana members, and of course the amazing volunteers who truly make this a reality. So on behalf of the Hawaii International Film Festival, mahalo, and see you at the movies. Thank you very much.